Hello, Religion 1003 students. In this video, this is actually going to be a condensed version of a lecture given in class regarding marriage so that you'll have the information needed for the final exam. Marriage, of course, important decision that we'll make outside of your relationship with God. Who you'll spend your life with is of great significance. But everybody agrees that marriage is not doing too well in the United States. Americans seem to be the very best at courting and dating, and maybe the worst at keeping lifelong relationships. So it's a skill you have to learn, and most of us simply do not possess that skill. But it is something that you can become. You can become a good marriage partner with the right skills and practice. Well, what does it look like out there? Most of us will marry. The divorce rate, contrary to what some people say that it's 50%, it's really been somewhere close to around 30 or just above 30%. And most persons who divorce then will remarry. It's actually about 80% of them. But then you need to know that about 44% of the people who divorce for the second time, will divorce, will remarry and then divorce a second time. So it's a skill that a lot of people do not have. Now, if you're looking at marriage satisfaction, and this comes from the American Association of Marriage and Family Counselors, you already know the divorce rate is roughly around the 30%. Then you could call 10% of the people high satisfaction marriages, and everybody else, roughly 55 to 60% of persons, lower satisfaction marriages. They're not going to divorce, but their relationship is not that satisfactory. So people have been looking for alternatives. Without a doubt, the most popular alternative is living together. David Mace calls those unregistered marriages. I actually tell my students, if you want to ensure that you're probably not going to ever really marry that person, then live with them. The divorce rate for couples who live together before getting married and then they get married is actually close to 80% also. It's astronomically high. And so the oddness seems to be that when you have lived in a kind of relationship that I call the open back door, and then you get married where you close the back door and make a commitment on it, it seems like couples are unable to handle it. The reason that marriage probably is a little harder than that for your parents or grandparents is that two significant words have emerged. One is love, that you married because of love, and understand that throughout much of history, marriages were arranged and the families got involved. Today it's all your decision. The other word is companionship. It's companionship that you're entirely making this decision yourself to live with this person that you want to be your deep soulmate and lifelong companion. You're not doing too well on that one either. Those are the two major words. And Robert Steinberg from Yale University says part of the difficulty here with understanding love is that it has three components. And I'd like to mention those three. One is intimacy. Which is feelings of closeness and connectedness and bonding. And then there's passion. Passion's all the drives that lead to romance and physical attributes, sexual intimacy. That's the one we often associate with the feelings of love. But he says the key component of love is a decision. It's a decision or commitment to stay and live with one person your whole life long. And that's really at the core what makes a relationship work well. In fact, that then leads us to the skills for a relationship, and I'd like to suggest there are 5. This came out of my own study as a doctoral student at Vanderbilt University, and I took my dissertation, put it into what became my first book called The Marriage Marathon, and talked about the primary skills couples need to make it, and there are at least 5. I've got 5 listed here. They all start with the letter C, so it'll be easy memory come time for the final exam. One is commitment. Commitment, the word we just mentioned a moment ago, that is the key component of love. It's the work of marriage. It's the work, really committing yourself to the things that make the marriage relationship work well. University of Nebraska did a 5-year study trying to determine why that 10% of couples have those high satisfactory marriages. They did a 5-year study. They only studied couples who scored very high on marital satisfaction scales and who had been married 15 to 25 years. And they found this. It's so simple, it's profound. Couples who have marriages at work at it. So what is that work of marriage? It's doing the right things that brought you into this lifetime relationship in the first place. Still having dates and honeymoons and being attentive and being kind and listening and all those things, and being committed to make sure they continue. A second word would be communication, and that is maybe a reason that God gave you 2 ears and just 1 mouth, that you become an exquisite listener as you see into and listen into your partner's soul and hear all that is about them. They're an everlasting source of fascination, and this is a place where actually a majority of couples who come to marriage counseling have a problem with that. Stuff gets in the way, they start hearing with a distorted filter, and they stop communicating well. But you can learn this skill and be better at it your whole life long. Then there's conflict. The best takeaway here is that conflict is simply normative. It just happens to people. But if you want to press towards your goal of intimacy with this person, understand that it means to be fully known and deeply loved. And to get there, it just follows a pathway of conflict on occasion. And so when it happens, you just say to yourself, well, this is not pleasant, this is going to be tough for a while, but if we keep pursuing it, eventually we're going to get to a place of understanding each other better, and we'll be closer. Compatibility is the fourth C. Over time, you become more compatible with a person. Yes, you're 2 separate individuals, but you share a checkbook and a bed and a house and all these things. And over time, you learn to appreciate, not depreciate, who your spouse is. Just understand the unique gifts that they bring to the relationship, and let them know that they're honored for it. And then cooperation is the last C. Cooperation simply meaning that everything you do as a married person affects the other individual, and that you work together like a team, almost like 2 oxen, in a yoke, and you got to be going the same direction. And you have long, deep conversations about where you're going in life and what you want to happen, and meeting each other's needs. And couples who practice those 5 skills are the ones who are likely to have great, satisfying, lifelong relationships in marriage. Thank you.